All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Moran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Moran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out here on a Sunday night. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering. Then anyone does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames, they always get that priority answering. You can also get that as well by clicking the link in the description there to join in and get that priority answering. And so I see we have a bunch of our familiar faces here that stop by tonight. We have Harsha, Brian, Jordan, Kyle, Grand, Anthony, B. Mitchell, Kevin, Cars, Shane, Danny, and F8, and Vishal, so many, Drunken Car Guy, and I see Mr. 705 saying, hi, Matt from Ontario. I hope you're keeping warm up there. Austin, Luke, Hugo, and yeah, so many. Thanks so much, everyone. And so getting right into the first member question here. Harsha says, I was thinking about this after you reported that the Camaro is not coming back as it's not financially smart to make a new one. Can't these engineers just start their own company to make affordable sports cars for enthusiasts? It's not going to be a big financial return, but it would be a passion project. I think that that's a tough one. I see also continuing, sports cars aren't a profitable market, so stripping the car down to its essential elements could reduce the price of each car, like any Miata level basicness, but still complying with federal safety. Yeah, it's tough. So, I mean, I think the thing that's problematic about doing an affordable sports car company is that you need to really have a lot of resources because it is a massive amount of financial commitment. And, even if you've worked out the business case, someone has to bankroll that. And getting a line of credit for tens of millions of dollars, even for something simple, it's really tough. I mean, there are, a lot of small little shop kind of things. I think Ariel is a good example of this. They did the Ariel Atom. That was kind of a bootstrap, like figure it out yourself, very basic, about as basic bare bones as you can get with the Ariel Atom. There are a few of those kinds of success stories, but it's tough, and also anyone who wants to do something like that, if you're going to do your own car company, you're going to do like the ultimate, like coolest thing possible. And we actually saw this, the person who designed, I believe, a couple of the Bugattis, and I think they also designed like the Koenigsegg and a couple other things. I don't remember the name of the designer, but he went off and made his own car. And we saw that at Pebble Beach back in the summer of 2024. And I can't remember what he called it. And it's, some limited run thing. He, had Cosworth build a V12 or something, and it's some wild thing, and it's a few $1,000,000. But that's really where you, can take a risk is with these super high end vehicles. That's why, you see at Pebble Beach, all these vaporware cars, essentially, that maybe they sell them, maybe they don't. I have no clue, but, these limited run 10, 20, 30 of these ultimate things that someone's, dream that they just have always wanted to make, they make it and put it out in the world, and that's the end of it. But as far as like you're saying, like those GM engineers that wanted to bring back a Camaro, like there's no way to do that really on their own. That's really the toughest thing. And I saw B. Mitchell saying, ask John DeLorean how well the start your own car company thing works. It's tough. It is very tough. I mean, again, some people have succeeded, in some smaller degrees, but it's very, very hard to do. So it'd be cool. But yeah, you'd have to really come from an enormous amount of money or something to even try and take a shot at that. And even then, it's an uphill battle. But it's a great question though. And I wish there was more of those out there. But I think, again, Ariel Atom and some of these already kind of fill the niche too for some of that real basic stuff you're talking about there. And, that's the nice thing about the kit cars is you can kind of get rid of the worries about federal safety stuff because, then you have a bunch of exemptions and you can just do whatever you want, basically. So that's why I think most of these will just end up going the kit car route if they wanted to do something like that. And let me see. Brian says, good evening. Jordan says, 1998, Stanley Meyer created a car that ran on water. Media attention. After a dinner with an investor, he became ill and verbally claimed he was poisoned. He died. Wow. Why no H2O cars now? I don't remember that. Maybe someone else has a better memory of that than I do. I don't know how a car running on water would would even work. That seems, yeah, I maybe they figured out a way, but that almost sounds like, these, what is it called? The like infinite energy kind of, um there's a word for it, the machine that basically just runs on its own energy. And it's one of these things that is, you have to have a catalyst, you have to have something that starts it and keeps it going. And that's kind of, I think, always the catch is, you can't have, something that is always generating enough energy to recoup what it just put out. So there's always a drag somewhere, and you have to compensate for that drag with some other, power source is usually the hiccup, I guess, the hold up for those types of things. Maybe someone figured it out. I don't recall that myself, but that's an interesting thing. I have to look into that. And thanks for bringing that up, Jordan. And Kyle, thanks for stopping by, and Grand. And Anthony says, hey, everyone, nice to finally get some nice weather in New York this weekend. I saw a Civic Del Sol and a first-gen Miata with a blower sticking out of the hood. Nuts. That is nuts. Man, that's quite the spot. Yeah, we're slowly starting to warm up. I think this coming week here in Pittsburgh, it's going to actually be in the 40s and into the 50s. So I'm sure I'll start to see some nice cars out, and I'm excited for that. And B. Mitchell also says, greetings, everyone. I got my new Matt Moran highball glass yesterday, so now loaded with 4 roses. I'm good to go. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you got it, and got it pretty quickly there. And thanks so much again for buying the glass there from the merch store. Really appreciate the support. And Grant says, I'm drinking flavored water. Also good. I just got plain old water here myself, so I'm doing the most boring thing here, no flavoring at all. And let me see. Mitchell also says, GAT in a way, so am I, but at least I don't need it to keep the water from freezing. Got up to 42 degrees Fahrenheit in the hinterlands today. Man, you guys actually, you did better than we did. I think that we went into 39 or so. I don't think we cracked 40 this weekend at all, but it's going to be, I think they're saying like mid 50s by Wednesday. So I'm excited for that. And Grant, thanks so much for gifting a membership. I really appreciate that. Happy to see 705 get it as well, because I believe he's actually in here. So I always love it whenever people that are actually present in the live streams actually get a membership. So that's awesome. Thanks so much for your generosity, Grant. And 2-Track, thank you for your perpetual energy machine. I think that's what I'm thinking of there. So yeah, that's always been like the ultimate thing that people have always been trying to achieve. And I don't think anyone's ever really cracked that as far as powering something. But yeah, maybe someday, we'll see. And let me see here. Danny says, hello. My 3 rare spots this week were a 1995 Toyota Corolla wagon, a newer generation Rolls-Royce Phantom, and a Hyundai Santa Cruz on Ontario tags. Interesting. Great spots there, Danny, and thanks for stopping by. Shane says car spot of the week was a yellow Lamborghini Storado, not typically in the type of vehicles you see in my neck of the woods. That's, very awesome. Maybe I saw one like at the LA Auto Show or something 2 years ago, but I never seen one out in the wild personally. And Vishal says, how's it going, Matt? Washed and vacuumed my Jet today. Feels good to have a clean car. Nice. Yeah, that is always a great feeling. And also just a very, I feel like, fulfilling thing too, of having that achievement of visually seeing it all clean, and that's always fun. And let me see. Trent Car Guy says greetings from Arizona, and B. Mitch also says was at a local car club feed today, and one of the members drove his Citroen 2 CV through the melting snow and salt mix. He'd better still be washing that little truffle as we speak, right? That is definitely risky, but I commend people for using their cars and using them like regular cars. That's always cool. And Ford enthusiasts, thanks so much for being a member for 5 months now. They say, hey, Matt, have switched my car shopping to off-road vehicles. I recently test drove an Outback Wilderness and a Bronco Sport Badlands. Opinions and thoughts. So, obviously your experience and your thoughts will maybe vary from mine, but if you're looking for my personal opinion on the two of them, I'd rather have the Bronco Sport simply because I can't stand the CVT and turbo combo that Subaru does. And it's not even just Subaru. I mean, Nissan's CVT turbo combo is also problematic and the stuff. It's just like a CVT and a turbo are a bad mix, because you have the like slushiness of a CVT, which confuses a turbo. So that instead of with regular gears, it usually builds, and and then that gives the turbo a very logical kind of progression for ramping up boost and all that. But whenever it's all over the place with engine revs, with a CVT, and then the turbo is having to do this catch-up game of spooling based on revs, but then that's always changing. It makes for a crappy experience, in my opinion. I mean, you test drove it and you're still considering it, so I guess it wasn't as much of a turnoff for you as it was for me. But it drives me crazy. I'd say otherwise, packaging in Outback Wilderness, obviously you have more space, and it's actually a class up in a way. It's basically like a mid-size versus Bronco Sport. It's technically subcompact. It kind of straddles subcompact and compact, because it's a very large subcompact, but it's smaller than all the regular compact SUVs. So, and my problem always with the Bronco Sport was that it's very expensive. But between the two, I would much rather be driving the Bronco Sport from a driving experience standpoint, but I'd rather be living with the interior space in the Outback. So neither of them are perfect in my opinion, but if I had to choose between one or the other, I'd pick the Bronco Sport and deal with the space, restrictions, just because you have better infotainment in the Ford. You have, better powertrain calibration. And honestly, also those Ford motors, typically those EcoBoosts, are pretty solid, and I've seen them go the distance as long as you keep up with maintenance. Arguably, I would venture a guess that it might even be a little less problematic than a Subaru once you get up into the 6-digit mileage markers. But both have their perks to them. Outback Wilderness obviously is very much beloved. All those Wilderness Subarus are, with the I don't know what overlanding crowd, I guess is the word. All those types of people really love that stuff. Bronco Sport, again, just not having as much capacity to stuff into it, I think hurts it a little bit in that area. But yeah, both have their redeeming qualities, but I'd go Bronco Sport personally. And good luck deciding. Hopefully you can find. It's also fun hearing your evolution of your car hunt. It's always fun to see, because this is, I think, honestly, a lot of people are really all over the place. It's not a logical thing, and I think that's something I don't always account for in my reviews, where I'm always like, well, if you're shopping for this, then you're shopping for these, and these. And it's like, no, a lot of times it's like, someone's shopping a Honda Ridgeline and they're also shopping like a BRZ, or it's like people are all over the place with what they're shopping for. So it's always kind of interesting to see what is competing in people's minds, and it's always fun to get that feedback there in real time. So anyway, but best of luck in your search there, for an enthusiast. And let me see here. Cara says, what are your thoughts about the supposed buyout of Nissan being considered by Tesla, as reported by Kurt Kreifels on Friday? Yeah, there's a few I saw making the rounds. It was a little too late for me to include in the weekly update. So, I just kind of let that be. First off, I didn't watch Kurt's video, so I'm not meaning to go against anything he's saying, but I'll just right off the bat say that is extremely unlikely. I heard the report, and there could be some validity to it. I'm not saying that it's a false rumor or anything, but even if they send it to Tesla, I don't think Tesla has any interest in that. I mean, Tesla is already not running at capacity at their factories. Their sales are plummeting thanks to Elon. Cybertrucks are piling up on lots because, after all the fanboys got them, no one else wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And I mean, they are struggling to get rid of all the extra Model Ys because they have, the new one coming. But it's just a lot of people just don't want Teslas anymore. And so what I heard from the rumor was that the appeal is that Nissan's like, oh, you can have our factories. And if this were Tesla 5 years ago, I could see that being an attractive proposition maybe for them. But the Tesla of 2025 does not need extra production capacity. And I don't see Tesla sales recovering anytime soon unless Elon is excommunicated from Tesla by the board. And, if Elon becomes completely divorced from Tesla, even then it's going to take some time, but it would have to be, once there's enough distance and enough time to really separate those two. I think that would be the only way the Tesla would be like, oh, maybe now we can start to, build, more production. So if that's if that's the only carrot that Nissan has to dangle in front of them is, hey, look, you can have some more factories, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And also Tesla, again, they just approved this gigantic pay package for Elon, last year that he strong armed them into giving him, and all this stuff. So like, I don't think they have the money either, to be completely honest, to, do any kind of investing in that. The only like, real far-fetched thing that I could reach for to maybe try and, justify a way for this to happen is if Elon wants to get out of the electric car realm, which based on how he's acting these days, I'm surprised we don't have V8s and all the Teslas that are out there already. But, if he's interested in getting into the gas car market, or if, again, he is looking for a golden parachute out of Tesla, maybe he can go and run wild at Nissan and turn them into some Mad Max brand of cars or something that's, he can just run wild with and run them into the ground. And, if that's what Nissan wants to do, then that's what they want to do. I also, if it is true, which again, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but if it is in fact true that Nissan is trying to kiss up to Tesla, it is a very questionable move from Nissan's board. I don't know if it's just that they're out of touch with American politics, but like, that is going to, I mean, it probably even, I hope they don't even confirm that they ever sent anything to Tesla, because the second that any Nissan owner or considering buyer hears that, hey, Nissan loves Tesla, then Nissan's almost guilty by association. And no brand in their right mind wants to be anywhere near Tesla right now. Nobody. They are not, even if the company likes what Elon is doing, even if Nissan thinks that Elon is the greatest person ever, like just from a PR standpoint, you don't want that, those bad vibes around you. So like, I don't know if that was just, again, a complete BS rumor just to like, keep that drama spinning with Nissan until we get some real news, or if it's legit. I mean, I don't know what to believe anymore about this Nissan stuff. But man, it's like they're turning into the Fisker of 2025. Last year it was, Fisker crashing and burning. And this year, if they're already, it's only February and they're already knocking on Elon's door for money, like, not going to be a good end for Nissan. So we'll see what ends up happening, but that's all of my off the cuff impressions on that rumor. I think it would be a terrible idea for Nissan. And they'd be better off being a subsidiary to Honda or to anybody else, literally any other brand. Honestly, I don't know why, like, Nissan is so proud, as far as their leadership, that they didn't want to be a subsidiary of Honda, but then they will go and kiss the Tesla ring. Is just like bizarre to me. Like, you would think, I mean, I don't know why some Chinese car company, BYD or somebody, doesn't throw an ungodly amount of money at them that they literally can't say no. And then you instantly have all Nissan US factories, you have all the Nissan sales network, you have all the servicing network. That's like a dream come true for a Chinese company. And, I know Nissan probably doesn't want it. And, they didn't even want the Foxconn thing from Taiwan because that has Chinese ties or whatever. But like, I don't know what these Chinese companies are doing. Someone needs to say, what is the highest bidder that is currently wanting to buy Nissan, or what was Honda going to pay? Double it, and then throw that offer at Nissan. And they might not take it in February, but in November, December, whenever they're at the end of their rope, I think they'll take it. And I think if these Chinese companies truly want to get in, and they want to get in the right way and not try and do some backdoor thing, or if they want to actually, play by the rules, build stuff in America, and source their stuff in America. Nissan's got battery plants that the Chinese companies could also take over with their own tech, but produce it in areas where it's not coming out of China directly. I think that's, I don't know. I mean, to me, that makes way more sense than any of the other ideas that have been floated. And then again, we have an option for Chinese EVs here in a normal fashion, like everyone else that's entered the market in the past 50 years. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's a long enough rant there on the Nissan thing, but we'll see. It's the gift that keeps on giving for all of us reporters and vloggers and whatever, with every Nissan merger thing being gold. So But yeah, thanks for asking. It's again, I'm sure it's something a lot of people are curious about. And Jason, thanks so much for rejoining the club. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting with you here tonight. And Jordan, thank you for the first super chat of the night. He says, "What about a Stellantis and Nissan partnership?" I mean, that would be fine as well. I just, again, anyone that's going to be merging with Nissan, I think they need to have money. And Stellantis doesn't, they have their own fires to put out. They have their own struggles. So if we're, spitballing companies that, could help Nissan out, I would pick companies that are pretty strong like Subaru. Subaru is doing really well. They're, a smaller company, arguably probably smaller than Nissan. I'm not exactly sure, but we know Subaru's been doing very well. Every year over year growth every year for I don't know how many years it's been. I feel like they are one of the most solidly reliable, profitable companies as far as like you can always count on Subaru to have a good year pretty much, or a better year than everybody else, at least even during like, the COVID years and stuff. So, I think if we're going to be, spinning a yarn about who's going to be buying Nissan, like it's got to be those kinds of stronger, larger companies. Toyota also said whenever the whole thing with Honda, came up, Toyota was like, we weren't even approached. I think the reason why is they assumed that the Japanese government would just block it on like anti-monopoly laws. But like, maybe Toyota could find a way with one of their subsidiaries or something to kind of merge or partner with Nissan in a way that, doesn't turn it into a giant monopoly, but, throws them a bunch of cash, and says, hey, Nissan, here's, a bunch of money. How about, you partner with us to start building sports cars with us or something. And, we get all the sports cars you engineer. We get a version of the next GTR, we get a version of the next Z. You help us build a new Celica, whatever the case is, and do these types of things or something where like Toyota is just completely like profiting off of Nissan, but, they're supporting them. I don't know. I mean, we could talk about it all night, but I think, yeah, it's going to have to be a strong company. So Stellantis would be out in my mind. And Tesla's out. Any of these other EV companies that aren't super stable yet, I don't think any of them are going to be interested. So it's got to be one of the other big giants. Maybe if like BMW was interested in doing like a mainstream cheaper brand or something, because BMW only has luxury. You look at, Volkswagen Group's got Audi and they got stuff higher and stuff lower. BMW is just BMW. They got, Mini, I suppose, but that's not really, a large mainstream brand. They have the upper stuff with Rolls Royce, but there's various things like that, but I think it's got to be a strong company if they're going to do that. I see Jason says Mazda, Nissan might work, but Mazda's already hooked up with Toyota. So I think that would be kind of, a little bit of a struggle there. I mean, maybe potentially, yeah, if Mazda wants to kind of distance themselves from Toyota, but I think they're just getting closer because the three of them, Subaru, Toyota, and Mazda, just did that big alliance where they announced that they're doing their own versions of gas-powered stuff, but they're using common electrical stuff and partnering up on a lot of other things. So I think there's some of that that's going to be happening instead. So yeah, we'll see, but it's fun to theorize, and something's got to happen with Nissan again by the end of this year. If the reports are right, they are going to be out of money. So something will happen. Either Nissan's going to crash and burn, or there's going to be an interesting partnership that actually will happen with somebody. So it'll be fun to follow. And Jeremy, thank you so much for being a member for 34 months now, almost 3 years. Really appreciate it, Jeremy. I think one of the original members there from the very beginning. Thank you so much. He says, my bet is on the next gen BMW M3 will be over 4,000 pounds. I feel like we just need something that's 450 horsepower and 3,500 pounds, not 600 horsepower and 4,500 pounds. I agree. I think, these days, this is why everyone loves the M2, myself included, because the M2 is kind of like, it's enough, it's, 380 some horsepower, and I think those are under 4,000. I think, what are they, like 3,800 maybe? So maybe a little bit beyond your target there, but that's to me, and I think a lot of other BMW M enthusiasts, that's like the closest to, the original kind of formula, or at least the formula of the past 10 years, before everything got so bloated and, overpowered, honestly. And, but I agree with you. We'll see what happens with the new class stuff, but it seems like new class 3 series, whatever that's going to be, is going to be smaller. It seems like it's a little smaller than 3 series. Just it's shorter and stubbier and all that. obviously it's not going to be any lighter, but at least the smaller dimensions might be a welcome change from just the usual bloat we see from one generation to the next. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's a fun thing to to who's going to take the place of BMW and do something like M used to be. It'll be interesting to see if someone ever does that. But Sean, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, whoever buys / merges with Nissan, I hope it leads to Renault coming to the US and Mitsubishi getting some revitalization. Yeah, I hope Mitsubishi does get helped out a little bit here because, their sales, weren't the best last year. I know in America, they were up a nice bit for North American sales, amazingly. But, the rest of the world, they were struggling. And so, yeah, definitely would love to see Mitsubishi get some love. Renault would be great to see here too. And especially because, since Stellantis actually just this past week did confirm that they're not bringing any more European brands here. So they have enough, the North American market. They said there's no reason to bring over Peugeot. There's no reason to bring over, Citroen or any of that stuff. So, it could be kind of, a nice thing for Renault. Now we did, get confirmation that the higher end of Renault, Alpine, they are going to be bringing some stuff here, but they're going to be electric, fast, big SUVs, which it's like, why? Like, there's too many of those already. Like, do something small and cool, but no one buys those in decent numbers. So again, business cases, it's the biggest killer of fun cars. But yeah, I do hope that someone helps out them as well. But yeah, thanks so much, Sean, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And Fook, thanks for being a member for 21 months now. I really appreciate all of your support as well. He says, new Maverick or used Ridgeline, everyday run around, 2-wheel drive, under 30 grand. I don't think does Ridgeline come in 2-wheel drive? I don't think it does. So I think that one you're just defaulting to all-wheel drive there for those. But as far as that or Maverick, I think it comes down to how much you're willing to spend on fuel. That's really going to be the biggest difference between the two of them, aside from the obvious size differences and all that. If you're doing a lot of miles, Maverick, either version, but especially the hybrid, is going to be way better on gas, and that'll save you a lot of money in the long run. I will say between the two, I'd rather live with a Ridgeline. You have more space. You have the, in-bed trunk thing, which you don't get in the Maverick. So Maverick's got a cramped little back seat and no trunk. So you either put a cab thing on the back of the Maverick, or you have, nowhere to put your groceries basically in a Maverick, aside from just loading up the back seat. So I'd rather have Ridgeline personally. And one of my really good friends has had a Ridgeline for many years now. He loves it. He's really, just been very happy with it. It's treated him well. I think Ridgeline is really good. If I had to have a pickup truck myself, I would have a Ridgeline because I would never need to do intense towing, intense hauling, and 90% of truck buyers don't need that either. But they like the body on frame stuff for the reason of having a real truck, even if it means they're suffering every day on their drives to work and stuff. But yeah, so I'd have a Ridgeline personally. They're great. The interior is underwhelming. For 2025, I got some nice little improvements. So obviously, I don't know what year you're looking at for Ridgeline. You'd probably not be getting all those newest things. So the infotainment's not super impressive or anything. The Maverick's got some better infotainment stuff. And I think I prefer the powertrain slightly in the Maverick as well. Just because, that turbo punch is nice to have. And then the hybrid thing is just great for the 40 MPG you get. But Ridgeline's probably, if you don't care about fuel costs, Ridgeline would be the way I would go. And with Maverick, you probably don't save a bunch of money between turbo Maverick and Ridgeline. So if that's what you're considering, then maybe, you're better off just going for the Ridgeline, since there's not much of a difference fuel-wise. But if you're looking at hybrid Maverick, that could really sway you, and I think that makes a lot of sense if you don't need, again, a bunch of backseat space. So hopefully it helps you a little bit, Fook, and thanks so much for stopping by. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, your current review, Mazda CX-70, Dodge Viper red color. I could visualize a Dodge badge. Dodge needs the looks and the size. Interesting. Yeah, I could see a partnership. I don't think that was another thing, with that report this week. Stellantis was like, they're good on brands. They don't need to bring any of the other ones from Europe over. They don't need to do any partnerships. They're really set. They have kind of different things for everybody. There's room for Chrysler to become more of a premium brand. We have Jeep already, kind of being a little premium-ish, and then you have Dodge for the more mainstream stuff, and you got Ram. I mean, they kind of have most of their bases covered, I'd say. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, I see what you mean though, especially put a Dodge badge, and I mean the Mazdas are, I think, a little more classically styled than Dodge stuff typically, but yeah, I can kind of see what you mean of like a CX-70 being like a new Durango in a way with maybe a little bit of a few tweaks or something. Yeah, it's a fun idea. Thanks so much, Jordan, for the super chat. And Hugo, thanks so much for being a member for 20 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, I wonder how Ram is going to build the Dakota. Hopefully it has a V8 Ram Dakota TRX. That'd be sweet. Yeah, as an actual like fun little competitor to the Ranger Raptor. That'd be cool. Yeah, I think they said what 2027 for New Dakota, and yeah, I'm curious how they're gonna do it as well. V8 probably is optimistic, even with Tim Kaniskis in charge. So I think the best you can hope for is Hurricane motor in that, and even that's probably bordering on overkill because you look at what Ranger has. It's a 4-cylinder. I mean, you can go up to the 2.7 in Ranger, but in the Raptor, but 4-cylinder for the main one. And all the other competitors really, 4-cylinder in Tacoma, Frontier's the only one with even a V6. So I think Hurricane would be amazing even just to have that. But V8 obviously would be fun and would certainly set them out, apart from the rest if they did decide to offer that. So we'll see. I mean, Ram, if anyone's going to do it, it would be Ram. So we'll see how that all plays out here in a couple of years. But yeah, thanks so much again, Hugo, for being a member. And let me see here. Getting back to the member questions. Where were we here? So, man, I fell behind a little bit. So I'm going to do just member stuff for now, just to get caught up a little bit. I will try and come back to the non-member questions here in a bit. But where were we here? So keep on scrolling up here. All right. So, Freight Productions and Short Films says, my dad is 81 years old. He loves Ram trucks and Hemis. When I come over in my F-150, he makes sure to tell me to park next to his real truck. Anyway, he has had 5 Rams and is angry they dropped the Hemi. Yeah, a lot of people are, and it sounds like it will probably come back, eventually. It won't happen super soon, but I think we'll see what happens for the 2026 model year or 2027 model year. I think it has a decent chance of returning, even if just for a few years here during the Trump administration. We'll see. But yeah, it's so funny. Some people are really, still, stuck on their brand. I think there's less of that than there used to be because there's more people that seem to be kind of jumping ship a little bit more than used to be the case for a variety of brands. But yeah, it's funny. Austin says, hey, Matt, let's talk about tariffs. LOL, JK. Right. Yeah. That would get me on another rant. But I mean, at least I kind of said my piece in the weekly update, and we'll just have to sit back with our popcorn and wait and see what happens with that. Luke says the Hyundai Casper seems neat. I'm not a big EV fan, but it's a super good price too. Too bad about the ground beef tax. We don't get it in the US. Yeah. The Casper would be cool. Bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't know exactly what's keeping the Casper out aside from, all the small stuff typically just ends up, the business case is that people would just be like, oh, well, no one's going to buy it because it's too small, it's too slow, whatever the case is. But I mean, you look at Hyundai Venue, which I feel like has to be about the same size as the Casper, and Venue's old at this point, and you would think that they would be looking for something new to freshen that up. And they have it just sitting there. Like, why not replace Venue with Casper, or just get rid of Venue altogether if you're not going to support that? Then you're just going to let it die on the vine. But I feel like if there's a case to be made for Venue here, and they've sold them decently well over the past 5 years or whatever, why not Casper? As the new replacement? I don't know. But yeah, I saw that Alex on Autos did a little video on that, and I haven't watched it yet, but yeah, it seems like a cool car. And because there's a non-EV version as well. So even if they bring, I can't remember what the non-electric one's called, but I mean any of those, that little thing, I think it'd be really, really cool. I think it's called the Insta or something. I don't know, but yeah, very, very cool. I saw a few of my buddies there over in South Korea. I wish I was able to join. That would have been fun. But let me see. And thanks for stopping by. I see Hugo's also saying, hope everything's well. Hope you're doing well too, Hugo. And you see, Kyle says, hey, Matt, do you think the Charger four door with the Hurricane 6 will be more or less than the Charger EV? That's a good question. I mean, I can't imagine that any version of the gas Charger is going to be more expensive than the EV version, because there's always just a premium there. So even with four doors, I mean, I can't remember the price premium between Charger and Challenger, but I think typically like two doors actually more expensive sometimes. I mean, obviously, that's a little counterintuitive, but that's oftentimes the way that companies choose to price things. So I think it's a safe bet that Charger Hurricane four door will be less than Charger EV prices currently. Because I think they said Charger four door is, I think someone says this, it's close to the same length. I mean, I saw it in person. It's been almost a year since I, saw the four door super early pre-production version. I did my video when I did my walk around of it. Four door seemed a lot bigger. It is a huge vehicle, but I think, or maybe it's just that it's on the same wheelbase and like the same, obviously same platform. But I think the wheelbase didn't change for the four door version compared to the two door. So shouldn't be that much of a price jump for the extra two doors and slightly different and slightly longer, I suppose, sheet metal. But yeah, I think it's a safe bet that'll be cheaper than Charger EV. And Grant says no cool car spots again. The bad weather has been fouling up my chi. Thankfully, it's getting warmer today finally. That's good. Well, yeah, hope you all enjoy the warm weather here this week that we're all going to be getting. I am keeping my fingers crossed. I am potentially getting a really sweet press car this week. I don't want to say what it is just yet because I don't want to celebrate too early in case they say if the weather gets bad, they won't be able to send it because the thing they're going to send me is on summer tires. So I'm really hoping the weather is consistently good this week and into the following week here so that they can deliver it to me safely and return it back to the office safely. But if it all works out, it'll be the most exciting press car I've ever had in my life. And so I'm excited for that. So we'll see. Hopefully weather stays good here. I'm hoping we get an early spring. But Hugo says, I'm really intrigued on how Ram will design the Dakota. Low-key, I'm very excited. Okay, so we talked about that already. And let me see. Cam says, hi. I can't stay, but stop to say hi. You've probably already signed off, Cam, but thanks so much for stopping by. And see, Kyle's responding to Timothy, so let's see what Timothy said. He said, why do you think the 6th gen Camaro sold the way it did? Some people blame GM for fumbling the marketing on the car. Honestly, I think the problem with 6th gen was that they listened to enthusiasts too much. And you would think, okay, well, that's great. You want to listen to your, most avid enthusiast, fans, but I think it hurt them because they only listen to those people. I think the reason why it sold worse than Mustang and Challenger is that it is less practical than Mustang and Challenger. It's the smallest interior of the three. It's the worst visibility of the three. And they lost sight of the fact that the reason why Mustang sells in the numbers that it has sold in, and Challenger as well, is that they are bigger. They're roomier daily drivers. The Mustang started as a nice secretary's car, and there is still a lot of just casual buyers like that are not enthusiasts that just like having a cool two-door still. I mean, I think that market is dwindling still, sadly, but today I saw numerous Challengers. Guess how many of them were Hellcats? None of them. Guess how many were even Scat Packs? None of them. What did I see all day today? SXT, V6 powered Challengers. Obviously, Camaro did offer the 4-cylinder and the V6, but people buy them just for looking cool, and people will deal with some discomfort of dealing with a two-door and getting into a low vehicle. They'll do some of that, but I think again that's especially why Challenger sold so well, is that you also sit up a little higher in Challenger. They offered all-wheel drive there towards the end here with that more recent refresh of the past 5 years, and they made it more practical and livable. And I think Dodge is brilliant with the new Charger of doing that even more. The new Charger has a a huge back seat, like a bigger back seat than even like some like compact sedans and compact SUVs. Like it's a huge back seat. You have a giant hatch. You can bring home a huge like big screen TV in the back of one of those Chargers, because the seats fold flat. You have this huge open hatch. That's the way to expand your appeal. And I think that, once the Hurricane versions come out, and I really hope they price that thing, competitively, or they put some cash on the hood, because I think at the right price, there's going to be a lot of people that'll be into Charger, especially when they learn that it's a liftback. And it truly, you don't need an SUV with Charger. It's because it has that SUV practicality, and it has the SUV sized back seat. Honestly, as long as you don't mind flipping a seat forward to get access to it, or you go for the 4-door. But like it's that's the thing that keeps the lights on. The performance stuff is fun. The performance stuff is the halo thing that gets people into the showroom. So people say, "Oh, I saw that really cool Challenger out on the road. I'm going to go to my Dodge dealer and check it out." And then they see how much it costs, or they see the fuel economy it gets, or whatever. They, I don't know if I can do that. Oh, but I really like the car, and you have this other one with all-wheel drive, or with the V6, and that does better on fuel, and then they buy. And that's I think the thing, versus I think you get someone into the Camaro showroom that was excited about that potentially, or even someone who just is coming out of an older Camaro or something, and they get into the new one. It's like, okay, well, now I got more narrow visibility. And I mean, I've lived with Camaros for many weeks at a time for press cars, and I've reviewed, I don't know, 5 or 10 of them at this point. You get used to it. It's not a deal breaker. It's a good enough car. I'd put up with it gladly, on a daily basis. It's phenomenal still. I always had said it's the best driving of the 3 muscle cars. It really is beyond a muscle car into the sports car territory. But for the average buyer, they don't care about all that stuff. They don't care about the alpha platform. They don't care about these, how well it handles at the limit. They just want something cool, and they went and bought a Mustang or a Challenger because they could live with it better. That's the bottom line. And I actually, someone commented on the talk this week about the Camaro not getting a new generation, and was like, they needed to make it bigger and softer. And I 100% agree. They should have made it bigger and softer. That is what they needed to do. And 6th gen went in the wrong direction. And if a 7th gen ever does happen and they still want to put a V8 in it, it has to be bigger and softer, especially with Corvette, still starting at a fairly low price tag for C8s. If you want a real sports car, you're just going to buy a Corvette these days. So Camaro trying to be a sports car, I think, was kind of a foolish goal. It should have just been a bloated muscle car, because that's all people wanted out of a Challenger. And GM they made Camaro too good and too sporty, I think, again, for mainstream appeal. And it didn't have to be a crappy car. It had to be a better car to more people, which I think is, again, the same thing with Mustang and Challenger. It made Mustang and Challenger compromised, but that's why they're still around. I guess Challenger technically isn't, but that's why the Dodge and the Ford are still around and the Chevy isn't. And I think that was their downfall. Everything else was fantastic. There's nothing else that I can fault the Camaro for. It's just that it's too sporty. So anyway, that's my take on it. And great question. Thanks so much for asking that, Timothy. And Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity. Happy to see some people able to get those there. And also, Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, was the IIHS created based on GM, Ford, and Dodge? I'm not sure. I think the IIHS was just an insurance thing of like they wanted to do their own testing instead of relying on NHTSA to do all the testing, or at least to advance things a little bit more than what NHTSA was doing. And so that's why the IIHS was created, I believe. I don't know their origin story, but I think it's just entirely funded by insurance companies that want to just protect against their own interests as best as they can, and do better assessments for just rating vehicles for insurance quotes. And so I think that's really the main driver there. And thank you for another super chat. And Jonah, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, do you think car companies jump the gun with discontinuing their cars? I feel sedans are starting to make a comeback because SUVs are so expensive. Yeah, and I said this, I swear I said this like 5 years ago with Ford. I'm like, they're going to regret this. It's kind of strange that any car company is so foolhardy to think that the good times are going to last forever. And because again, we just lived through this with a recession. I mean, I guess some of you, if you're younger, maybe don't have as much experience with, being cognizant of what was going on in the world in 2008. But like, it's all like a repeat in so many ways of like, oh wow, like everyone's lighting cigars with $100 bills in 2006 and 2007, and then all of a sudden we have the financial crisis, and all of a sudden you can't give away a Ford Expedition. No one wants to touch it, and all these giant things. It got so bloated and so overboard. Hummer H2s just turned into this like, you know, car that like people would just hate it eventually, and all these types of things. And so they just lived through all that, and badly. I mean, they had to, other than Ford, the other two had to get bailed out and all this stuff. Um, and then, to be like, oh yeah, well, now we have small SUVs, and so we're set. We can still get rid of the cars, and no one's ever going to want this. And it's like, you still have physics to compete with, and no matter how many aerodynamic tricks you come up with, an SUV is always going to be worse on gas than a comparable car with the same powertrain and better aerodynamics. Like, it's physics. So like, I mean, maybe we don't have to worry about gas at least for the next 4 years. We'll see. But I mean, just as far as pricing goes, again, you have these larger vehicles. It's going to be more expensive, and so why companies lose sight of affordability, I don't know. I think a lot of them, they just don't care because they want the profits. And if they leave behind, low income buyers, they're happy to just lose those people to the used market or to another brand, because again, they're very low profit margin vehicles anyway. So sure, people are buying, their Fiesta type vehicles or their Focus type vehicles somewhere else. And maybe that's no skin off Ford's nose because they're making, 5 times the profit on every F-150 they sell or whatever. I don't know. But, I just feel like it's, these cars are also gateway cars. This is, why the luxury brands do a cheaper vehicle as an entry point, a gateway point to get people accustomed to the brand and get into that brand and stick with that brand. And, Ford has really no gateway anymore, and I think that's, a little bit of the problem with, Ford in particular. I think, GM's done a better job because you have such cheap SUVs with Trax, for example. But I mean, Dodge is also struggling with this as well. Every Hornet basically is over $30,000, at least MSRP wise. They're expensive. And, again, yeah, I don't know. I absolutely think they jumped the gun, it's short-sighted. And again, we'll see how the next 4 years goes. But if everything gets 25% more expensive in the car world, then they're really going to regret it. Because then, people are going to be running to those Mitsubishi Mirages, the last ones left on the lot, and every Nissan Versa they can snatch up and stuff. If a Nissan Versa is the only car under $25,000 after these tariffs are done, then it's, I mean, push comes to shove, it's, a lot of people obviously just going to go to the used market, but for all that stuff's going to go up in price too. If these things actually happen again, I don't think we'll actually see a 25% tariff, but that's what the proposal is. And so I'm not just going to assume that it's all BS. I'm going to, when Trump says stuff, I'm going to take him at his word, and until, he says otherwise. I'm not going to, be blindsided, just assuming everything he says is a lie. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, it's just sad too, because the last thing I'll say about that is, yeah, they are leaving people behind, and it puts people in a worse position in other ways, because again, they have less options. They have literally Nissan Versa, the only thing left under $20,000 new. And it's tough, because whenever you go to the used market, then your interest rates get worse, and then you get people into these cycles of higher debt, and not building equity as quickly. And then already they're starting off in an older vehicle with more miles. They're gonna have to go back and buy another used thing. It turns into this slowly cycling spiral of, it can just eventually spiral to a point where you kind of put that person into a hole. I'm not saying that, you have to be in that kind of a position. It depends on what you buy and how you do things and stuff, but it's just, you're putting people to a disadvantage whenever you're, offering less affordable new cars for people to buy, in my opinion. So yeah. And I'm very passionate about affordable vehicles. So and you'll see my own passion as I am picking up this week a one of the most affordable vehicles you can get right now for my little backup vehicle, just to have something to run around in whenever I don't have press cars. So stay tuned for that this week. I've talked about that in past live streams. I'll finally be picking up the vehicle tomorrow, and that'll be a video for this week here. But anyway, so also I see Austin, thanks for being a member for 14 months now. He says IHS was founded in 1959 by 3 major insurance associations representing 80% of the U.S. auto industry market. Thank you for looking into that. I appreciate that. So yeah, I think that's it. And it makes sense too, because it's just, you don't want to be relying on the NHTSA with their tests being super outdated, very basic tests that basically anyone can ace these days. I think the IHS is doing some really good work there. But anyway, getting back to the other member questions here. So let me see, find my spot again here. And man, I'm sorry, we're so far behind. I promise I will be more concise with these answers here. Where are we here? All right, I'm almost there. So, Trucking Car Guy says the closest you're going to get to a modern bare bones car that's affordable is a Mirage, and that's very dated. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people really love them, And Austin says, hey, Matt, do you see California walking back the 2035 new vehicle sales ICE ban? It's possible California might lose their emissions waiver from the EPA. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to end up being a legal battle. We'll see what happens and, how that plays out before we can say if California loses that. I mean, I could theorize all kinds of ways of California trying to work around it or join Canada or whatever they do. I don't know. But, as long as the leadership in California is the same type of leadership that they've had, for a while now, I don't see them trying to walk that back, mainly because the thing with the California one is that it has an exemption for plug-in hybrids. So, I mean, again, we are still talking 10 years away from now. You see how plug-in hybrids are already getting more and more popular, and hybridization is getting more and more advanced. I mean, maybe they would, open it up to being, any hybrid new vehicle, maybe if they want to backtrack a little bit, but I don't see California just being like, oh, whatever you want to do, unless there's some radical change in leadership and in voting habits in California. I think that they will try and find a way to either do it, on a more localized level, even if the California, can't do it on a state level. There's a variety of different ways they can go about it. But because, I mean, it's just like, with some of that valley stuff, the smog in LA is still just terrible. And that's something other parts of the country don't appreciate, but it's like the air quality actually sucks sometimes in LA. And there's a real reason here for why, even if, you make the argument that, the emissions are produced at the power plants instead, that's still an improvement for LA's air quality. It's there's those types of things where, I think in some ways, at least for LA and a few of those other counties, they need to have some of their own restrictions just for their own well-being, for the health and safety of the people around there. Maybe not for the entire state. And, again, maybe that's where you'll see some flexibility, but I think, I don't know. It's hard to say, but California will not let that go easily at all. And, again, it is still 10 years away, so we'll see. But I would expect that they're going to try and hang on to that as long as they can. And let me see. Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, some Americans receive government assistance. What if the government provided an economy car for people to get to work and contribute to society? I mean, that would be even bigger than, the COVID checks that, were sent out. And, as far as government assistance, there is a lot of assistance out there, but it's not nearly that high. I see Jonah saying, the Soviet Union had the Trabant. It was a terrible car. I don't think the Trabant was even like a government freebie, though. I know it was government funded, I believe. I don't know my history on the Trabant super well, aside from the Top Gear episode from 15 years ago I watched or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting idea, Jordan. I think, that there's just whenever it's an actual vehicle, I think one that would there was no way you'd be able to pay for that from a government standpoint, without some major increases in taxes and things like that. And if you're going to do that kind of stuff, I think most people would rather see that go to, free college or other things than transportation. I think a lot of people don't aren't really focused on the transportation aspect of things, and the amount of money that would cost. I mean, you could provide, again, if we're trying to talk about the greatest amount of good per dollar, you could have way more buses, way more public transit and things like that. I mean, all the people you could fit on a bus, if you gave all those people a car, I mean, you could probably spend all that money and pay for, a bus and then some potentially. I don't know, but so it's hard to say, but I feel like that just kind of has too many pitfalls, because it's like it's not only for getting to work and back. Maybe if they did government provided Uber rides or something like that, I could see maybe something like that making more sense potentially than an actual car, which can be used again for personal use and has more openness for abusing that privilege. So I think that would be kind of tricky. And again, it'd be a lot more money than the average government assistance, I think, too. See, Austin says Trabants would be a punishment, not a perk. Yeah, Trabants, if you people to drive a Trabant to work, then unemployment would really get even higher. People be like, you know what? It's not worth working if I got to drive a Trabant to work every day. Oh man, that would be funny. But yeah, thanks for the super chat, Jordan. I appreciate it, and always appreciate the thought-provoking comments and questions there. And let me see. So Harsha says, I noticed a lot of new cars have a light bar styling now. Hyundai Kona, Elantra, Cybertruck, and Model Y have this design. Is this becoming a trend? Absolutely. Volkswagen's starting to put it into some of their stuff as well. And it is really funny though, because like Beth and I have a game when we're driving around at night where it's like, is that a Cybertruck or is it a Model Y or is it a Kona? Because around here there's a lot of Konas, and from a distance, it's a little hard to tell. Is it a Kona or is it a Cybertruck? Obviously, as you get closer, you can see that it's lower and it's not exactly the same kind of light bar. But I wonder, with people hating on Cybertruck so much, if that is going to be a quick pivot for other car companies to be like, actually, we don't want to look like we have a Cybertruck, light bar in the front, and maybe they will move away. I don't know. Obviously styling trends always come and go anyway, so anything's going to be short-lived. But, I'm kind of curious who sticks with that and who doesn't. Obviously, again, there's way more Konas out there than Cybertrucks, but I just kind of wonder, how companies, feel about that kind of association again these days. But let me see here. Jordan says, Chad and I are watching you live on TV, 2 phones, a tablet, and a laptop, hoping that helps with views, all connected to our Wi-Fi. Will the IP address affect success? YouTube knows whenever it's, same IP address, they don't count multiple views, I don't believe. They may to a certain extent, but they are very smart about knowing when people are trying to game the system, because long time ago, people did game the system with YouTube. There were farms of people that would just run a video on repeat and have a program set up to literally just refresh the page and replay the video over and over and boost views. That used to be like one of the oldest ways to boost views back in the day. I actually knew someone who did that, and that was a long time ago. But that's they figured that out pretty quick, and so it's really about unique IP addresses. I mean, I think that to a certain extent, they do probably count. Like if Beth's watching right now, like that may still count even though I'm on here. But I think with 5 devices or whatever, or 6, I don't think that all counts, but I could be wrong. It might also be one of those things where it counts initially, but then when they go back and adjust views, like for on a regular view on a video, I think oftentimes on that it could adjust downward based on that sometimes. But I'm not sure exactly how they go about that these days, but I'm pretty sure that they just go off IP address. Small Cookie says, used electricity to split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen through electrolysis, then burning the hydrogen gas to power the engine, essentially creating water vapor as exhaust. As far as the water-powered vehicle, is that what we're talking about here? Because then that's, hydrogen fuel cell basically is what that would be essentially, right? So or maybe just hydrogen burning, which Toyota's experimenting with as well. And yeah, the problem is just hydrogen is just tough to get and tough to package, tough to transport, tough to dispense. It's a lot of hurdles there for hydrogen. So I mean, Toyota and Hyundai, and then they really still see a vision for it. They're smarter than I am, so we'll wait and see what happens. But I really don't see that ever being a promising way forward for a long time, unless there's some insane technological breakthrough with hydrogen someday. And Trying Car Guy says, I think someone brought up the Crossfire last week, and I saw one on my commute back from work today. That's awesome. Yeah, Crossfires are so cool. I'm so happy I got to review one of those a long time ago and actually try one out. They're actually better than you might expect. I know, like Jeremy Clarkson, I think, and a few other people were really bashing them back in the day, but I think Crossfire is great. And they're also a pretty good deal too these days. And let me see. So trying to see other member questions here. So yeah, I apologize. Anyone else who I'm skipping your questions, if you're not a member, feel free to ask them later on. If we do get caught up later on, I'd be more than happy to still answer, but just want to get caught up here. So Dylan says, I just popped in for a little bit. Spot of the week for me was a Sentra Nismo. That was neat to see one finally. Nice. Yeah. And I saw a Juke Nismo last week. It's always cool to see those, but yeah, Sentra Nismo was kind of a missed opportunity. I feel like they should have done more with that. And it's still sad they don't have one of those these days. I feel like that would be something that still would sell in decent numbers and honestly bring some more appeal to Sentra. It's a good car, but just, I think a lot of people don't even really pay attention to it. And I think a Nismo version could help people be like, oh yeah, the Sentra, I forgot about that. And then check them out and be like, hey, maybe I don't want the Nismo version, but there's still really nice Sentra here. And again, that halo effect, I think, could actually work for them with that. But let me see. Fuchs says, me trying not to comment anything political. I know we'll try and stay away from politics as best we can. But I mean, I really feel like, especially with the tariffs and stuff, it's so intermingled. I'm kind of at the point of, I'd like to still try and avoid things as best I can, stay as neutral as I possibly can. But it's getting to be impossible to, split those things up since everything is so intertwined these days and everything is politicized. Cars used to not be politicized, and now it is in a variety of ways, whether we're talking about Tesla, or we're talking about any EV in general, or we're talking about, giant trucks or whatever the case is. Everything kind of has a political tie to it these days. So it's just unfortunate. But Vijay says, watched your Taos review, did not realize how pricey it was compared to the competitors. Also odd that the seats weren't perforated, and my Jetta SE leatherette seats are perforated, which is nice. Yeah, perforation is key, and it was kind of strange that they didn't do that, but I'm glad that your seats are better, and that's definitely the way to go with the perforation there. And yeah, I don't know, maybe Taos just has cash on the hood, and Volkswagen's happy just to discount it or something. But it's really strange that they priced it so high, because they know what the winning success story with Jetta, why Jetta sold so well last year, had a huge year for Jetta, a huge improvement, and I'm so happy about it. But it's because it was cheaper than all the others. And, I would have thought that they would have, taken note of that really quickly and been like, this is our strength. Let's keep doing this. And Taos, again, it was just a refresh. There's really no reason to jack up the price a bunch. It's not a new generation or anything. And the fact that it's just, it's more expensive than everything else. It just, and I mean, I'm always going to say it in my reviews, if it's priced poorly, I'm just going to say, go for one of the other competitors. Because it's not worth a price premium. But and everyone's deal is different, and some people can maybe get a better deal on it, but it's a shame, because Taos is actually, a nice solid little vehicle these days. And I see he's still a buster, says he saw a convoy of 7 or so Nissan Cubes. Bonus spot was a police cruiser, Jeep Gladiator in Lancaster, PA. Interesting. That's so surprising. Sorry, I glanced over the 7 Cubes there. Couldn't resist. That is wild. I guess maybe there's a Nissan Cube club running around somewhere in PA or something. That's surprising. Thanks for sharing. Jason says, any thoughts on the 2025 Maverick Tremor? Do you think it's got legit off-roading cred? It depends on what your definition of legit is. Obviously, it's no Jeep Wrangler, but I mean, I think, do you get a rear locker in that? I don't even know, because I've never reviewed a Tremor. and so I'm not an expert on that vehicle, but it's cool they offer a trimmer version, and I think it's maybe at least a little bit more legit than like the Santa Cruz XRT, which is just some mild all-terrain tires and not much else. I think Maverick's a little more wholehearted with its attempts. But yeah, I'm hoping to get a new Maverick here to review at some point. Ford is terrible at sending press cars, but I've been wanting to review the refresh Maverick, that's just starting to hit dealer lots here, and I've been wanting to do a trimmer even for the pre-refresh and never had a chance. But I did make a connection with a big dealership group here in the Pittsburgh area that I'm going to be hopefully this year kind of doing some of those cars that I've been wanting to do forever that I know should probably get decent views. Then I'm just going to go out and finally, be like, okay, if I can't get them from the press fleet, then forget it. I'm going to go to a dealer and get these videos made because I feel like I have a pretty good sense these days after like 800 car reviews. I know like what I need to do. And instead of compromising, I'm just going to go for this stuff and follow my gut. And if it means I got to go to a dealer to do it and, do a video that isn't quite as in depth, I can't do a fuel economy test. I can't live with it for a week, but I get the video out at least and I give my impressions on that car. I think that's going to be really important. So I'm going to try and that's one of the cars on my list is I'll probably never see a Maverick from Ford because they take forever, and any Ford is going to be like a lost cause to wait for the press fleet to send it to me. So I'm just going to go and do some of those Fords this year. Like also, I'm going to try and get my hands on a dark horse. Finally, it's one I haven't had a chance to drive yet. Going to track one of those down and just get it done because I know that video is going to kill. People love my Mustang videos, and so just that kind of stuff. But Maverick trimmer, I will hopefully have a review on Maverick trimmer at some point this year. Might not be in the next month or two, but hopefully at some point this year, get that one done for sure. And Sean says, not trying to make the chat political again, but I will not own or even rent a Tesla as long as Elon is involved. Yeah. I can sympathize with that. Yeah, I won't get into that rabbit hole, but yeah, I see Austin also says, I don't think Tesla can get rid of Elon, even if they wanted to. He owns the highest percentage of shares. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, even for his own preservation of his own self-worth, if Tesla shares ever do, get a dose of reality and finally, drop down, it's going to hurt him too. So, I mean, like any stock broker or stock trader, you want to sell high. And if he can cash out and sell off with his money and go be an oligarch or whatever he wants to do, I mean, I still don't see why he needs to hang on to Tesla. I don't think he's really that passionate about it anymore. He's not even, it sounds like he's sleeping at the White House every night. So like, I don't know why he's even bothering with any of this other stuff anymore. Seems like he's kind of lost interest. So why not cash out? Let Tesla be Tesla. Again, I think he's kind of changed his positions anyway in the past 5 years. So does he care about electric cars? Does he care about any of this stuff anymore? I really doubt it, honestly. I mean, he's running around, with chainsaws. So I don't know. I don't see it. So like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some way to maybe convince him, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't think there's any way to rationalize Elon's behavior. But yeah, I can totally relate, Sean. I could get into that, but yeah, I'll bite my tongue for now because I know we do still have some Tesla fans in here, I think. But let me see. So other questions here. Trent Car Guy says, as much as I'm a Mopar guy, Stellantis is in a hole themselves. We had a new Cherokee at work, and that wouldn't shut off and wouldn't shift out of park. Guessing some hybrid issue. Weird. New Cherokee. So are we talking Grand Cherokee? Because they discontinued the Cherokee last year. Or actually, I think it was the end of 2023 and they built the last Cherokee, if I remember correctly. So yeah, and new Cherokee's not coming for another year or so. So I don't know. But yeah, if you had a Grand Cherokee, especially if you're talking hybrid, you're talking the 4xe Grand Cherokee. I mean, that 4xe stuff, I mean, it is a little problematic. I know I had a Wrangler 4xe and it threw a check engine light on me, the one that I had for a week. So there's, I know there's been some issues with the 4xe powertrain, I think. So yeah, we'll see if Stellantis can figure out the electrical stuff. I think some of their stuff is better than others. And, but yeah, I think there's definitely some room for improvement there for sure. Excuse me. And Ford Enthusiast says, I just don't understand how this liking slash disliking for Elon is a big deal. Just stick to the product. Tesla sell because they are a good EV. It doesn't matter who runs the company. I think it's just a difference in personality. Some people can separate the artist from the art. This has been a thing, especially in the past 10 years with various scandals coming out about this person or that person, or like, oh, this person was actually a terrible person. And it's like, man, well, I really enjoyed their music or their movies or their shows or their books or you name it. And then it's like, oh crap, now I'm disappointed in this person. For some people, yeah, they don't care and it doesn't matter. And then for other people, it is, a problem. I think that the thing also with Elon being attached to Tesla is like, it's not like, if we're talking about like, a musical artist or something, you bought their CD 10 years ago, you're not contributing to their wealth because you keep listening to that CD or you keep listening to that, Spotify thing or whatever, because no one makes any money on Spotify. But like, any of those things, you're not directly enriching that person, I think, is at least the way I think about it, versus like everything that is Tesla related, Elon gets a cut of that. So if you're buying a Tesla, if you're charging in a supercharger, if you're using Starlink, any of these things that people are boycotting, it's because you are actively enriching him more. And obviously it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, I don't know what he makes every hour. He's probably making more than I've ever made in my life, but like, it still is just that precedent of like, I am paying money right now and some of it is going to him. And if you really hate his guts, that's not going to sit well with these people. And this is why tons of people are dumping Teslas, because yes, even if they already bought their Tesla, they continue to supercharge, they continue to support the network with servicing and all these other things. And I just saw, I think, I can't remember, I was on some forum or something, but I think they were saying that like their local dealer was down to like, I can't remember what it was, like $16,000 on as a trade-in offer. Oh, it was another fellow journalist that he had a friend that just dumped a Model 3 and just got some other EV, I think an Ioniq 5 or something, just because he wanted to get out of his Tesla. And he was like, yeah, the dealer is like they have so many Model 3s, they don't even know what to do with them. And they're offering, I think his was like 2 years old and had, I don't know, like 20,000 miles. And they're like, we'll give you 16 grand for it. Like they are plummeting in value. Nobody wants to touch them from a dealer standpoint because they can't get rid of them. There's just, and it didn't help that Hertz dumped all theirs last year. And, it just like, I mean, I guess in a way, Elon has actually provided the affordable EV because you can pick up a Model 3 for nothing now. So in that way, it's a used one, but EVs, no one can complain about not being able to afford an electric car anymore, because you can literally like go out and trip over 5 Model 3s for $5 each out there on the road. I mean, you can pick one up for nothing. So it's very, very low cost. So there's no excuse now to say, oh, I can't afford an EV. They're not some luxury item anymore, especially Model 3s. But so anyway, won't continue to go down. But there's just a lot of those things that it really does strike a nerve for some people. So some people, yeah, it doesn't matter. But I am one of those people where it's like whenever someone, a celebrity or something turns out to be a piece of crap, it's like I get the ick about it. I'm like, oh, well, now that kind of ruins, my appreciation of this or that or whatever. It might still be a fantastic piece of art or whatever the case is, but it's just like, it's tainted and it sucks. And, I wish I could be one of those people that doesn't think that way, but it's so hard for me to split those two things in my head. So I think a lot of people are also like that, and that's part of the biggest problem with that. But Austin says, I just wish the latest M2 didn't look like a graphics card glitch. Yeah, that's that's a really good way to put it, Austin. I wonder if anyone does body kits for the M2, because I feel like with just like a nice regular body kit, you could like actually just like forget all about this siding. And this was actually, I don't know if this was like a shower thought or this was a random thought I had when I was driving the other day, but I was like, someone would make a killing. I don't know if someone already does this or not. Free idea, because I don't have the time or the money to do it myself. So whoever has the means, go forth and prosper. But I think someone should do a body kit company that just does only BMWs and just makes boring like body styling for them. Like, make a body kit for an M3 that gives it a small grille and a regular boring front bumper. And, do like just bland bumpers. I think it was after I saw that Vision new class driving experience thing or something. I'm like, if they actually did ever ship a car with an insane rear bumper like that, like someone just did a regular like Toyota Corolla style rear bumper on that thing, you could sell 10,000 of those easily, those rear bumpers. And I don't know if body kits are even like something people buy anymore, really. So I'm not in the car culture much, but like body kits need to come back, I think, because you can tone down the styling of a vehicle if everyone's repulsed by the way something looks. You can have a nice boring body kit. I should just that's the car company, or that's the parts company name, Boring Body Kits. BBK. That's what I want to do. I feel like, especially in the BMW world, you can make a lot of money just doing boring body kits for people that don't want to be embarrassed with these insane huge gaping front ends and all this other stuff. But yeah, an M2 is another one. You put a 1M front bumper, that style, on an M2, man, I swear you'd sell a ton of them. I feel like half the M2 buyers would probably buy a new bumper off you. But anyway, just again, dumb thoughts I have in passing here. But I agree with you there. It is the one downside of the M2, but I personally would live with it because M2 is still a really good driving car. And let me see. So let me see, where were we? I see Sean also and Ford Enthusiast discussing. Yeah, same thing I was just saying. So you guys are already 15 minutes ahead of me here with the discussion. But so Austin says Ford should do a Top Gun, a special edition of the Maverick. That'd be fun. I'm all for the movie tie-ins, as you know, so that'd be a fun one for sure. Linda says, good evening, all. It's good to be here. Thanks for stopping by, Linda. Hope you're doing well. And Fook says, new Ridgeline is all-wheel drive only now. They only did front-wheel drive for a few years. Interesting. I guess that must have either I've forgotten about that or that went under my radar there. So that's cool. Yeah, if you can get a front-wheel drive Ridgeline, probably helps with fuel economy too a little bit. That'd be a great car for sure as well if you don't need it. Don't need the all-wheel drive. Austin says Ford or Dodge needs to bring back the Neon. There's a hunger for those cheap base vehicles. Totally agree. And Harsha says, how come Honda doesn't have a Tacoma or a Tundra competitor? They don't seem to take the truck segment very seriously. I think that's one of the ways where Honda still is kind of quirky. Honda likes doing things the Honda way, which isn't always the logical way. Because you're right. I mean, Ridgeline should be a Tacoma competitor, not what it is. And I think that was kind of part of the potential appeal of the merger with Nissan was, they could have a regular truck. I don't know if they'd want to actually use the Frontier as a basis, but maybe they'd, slap some badges on a Frontier and, do something different there. But it was really about those large ones. I don't know if they'd, try and revive the Titan, but, at least with Armada and stuff, do a proper huge Honda SUV. I think that was really the real appeal there. So, and maybe, if that merger does happening, because there is talk of Honda maybe considering it if the Nissan CEO bails, maybe we will see them take that segment more seriously if they have the resources. But I think also, Honda is a very large company, but at least here in the States, as far as how they invest, it's very conservative. They didn't even want to bother still to do an all-wheel drive Accord. They don't want to bother to do all these low-hanging fruit, even an all-wheel drive Civic to compete with, Corolla and Impreza. There's no interest there. And I think there's a lot of segments where Honda's just content to just not compete or not compete on every level. And, Honda sales are still doing really well. So I don't think it's, really hurting them that much. But yeah, it's unfortunate if you're a big Honda fan, you need a large truck, you don't have anything there, so, but I think, Ridgeline again is great. It does do a lot more than people probably realize, still has a solid tow rating. Still, I was in a Montana state park. I can't remember which one it was with Honda. Now, whenever we did the pilots, the refresh of the last gen pilot, and I think it was Black Bear National Park in Montana. It might be what's called. I'm not exactly sure. Something or Black something in Montana. I think we had one or two people from Montana who might know what I'm talking about. But anyway, went straight up like this huge hill with all season tires with that awesome Honda all-wheel drive system, same as the Ridgeline, and it just did so well, and I was so impressed. I was driving on completely snow-covered roads the entire time, no issues whatsoever, didn't miss a beat. It's a fantastic truck, and that's why I highly recommend Ridgeline to anyone that's considering. And let me see. Sorry, Jordan, I missed your super chat earlier there. He says, just emailed you the video story of the H2O car. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'll check that out later. And yeah, thanks so much for that. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat as well. He says, the designers of every new vehicle generation should have to go into detail publicly with their inspiration and direction for the company. BMW? Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes they have those interviews where they kind of talk a little bit about it and, what inspired them. But, I mean, what BMW has said in the past is that their cars are not meant for everyone, which is kind of a convenient excuse for just bad design after the fact, when it's not taken very well by the public. That's the go-to thing. I mean, that's like every artist or every whatever is like, oh, well, it doesn't matter because it's not meant for you. And just like, and, turn your nose up to them and move on. But like, yeah, I mean, I will say the same complaint I have. I always complain about Subaru, and then their sales are great. Same thing with BMW. BMW sales are fantastic. They're doing really well as a company. So clearly the bad styling doesn't bother very many people. Or the rest of the car is just so good they don't care. I don't know what the case is. Or maybe someone's actually already selling these boring body kits and I just haven't spotted one yet. People are just doing that to work around the bad styling. I don't know, but yeah, I will say the new class sedan, looks like it's going to be actually really good looking. I actually really dig that design. The SUV version looks terrible with the pig nose or whatever it has, but the sedan looks really good. I think that's the first modern BMW that's, I mean, I guess the SUVs like X5 is fine and all that, but as far as like the smaller, sportier stuff, like that's the new class is the first one in a while. I've been like, man, like that actually does look pretty good in my opinion. Interior is still funky, but at least the exterior looks pretty good to me. And thank you again, Jordan, for the super chat there. And let me see, getting back to where we were here. So let me see. Get a drink here. So, all right, we're talking about, I see some replies here. Ford Enthusiast says, seen many non-CVT transmissions overheat where the Subaru CVTs do not. Interesting in regards to this question much earlier here about the Outback Wilderness. See, I have heard that Subaru CVTs do overheat. And I think actually the Fastlane truck, I thought that I think they actually like had a Subaru fail on their trail, like actually like CVT completely crapped the bed and like rendered the car immobile. I could be misremembering, but I thought Subaru CVTs actually were kind of bad for overheating. Maybe I'm out of the loop again. Maybe in the real world with just regular owners, maybe it's not the case. But if you're being demanding with it, from what I thought I remember seeing and hearing, they do actually kind of fall apart if you do push them too much, but I could be wrong. I have to do more research there. Austin says, I'm guessing Hurricane will be cheaper than EV. Yeah, about the Charger question earlier. Another nail in the coffin for the Charger EV. Yeah, but I mean, still the Charger EV is going to be the faster one easily. So again, that's what I've always said with Charger EV. It's going to separate the people who truly care about straight line performance and the people who don't. And the people who want to have either the cheaper price or just want the experience of the gas or whatever the case might be. But the Charger EV is going to be the top dog for a performance standpoint. So, we'll have to see again how much people really do care. Everyone talked for the past 15 years about how they care about going fast. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I don't actually care about going fast. My V8 thing's fast enough. I don't care that it doesn't hook up. I don't care that, I'm going to be losing to every drag race to a Charger EV. Doesn't matter because now all of a sudden I'm an experienced person, not a performance person. This is kind of the pivot I think a lot of these Mopar guys have had. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And Harsha says, interesting to note about the venue in the US, they pre-refreshed Hyundai venue, but in India, they updated the exterior and the interior. Personally, I like the look of my first model year venue that I got in 2020. Nice. Yeah, I forgot you had one. Yeah. It's interesting that we didn't get the refresh then. So I guess Hyundai really does not care about it here in the States. That's strange. I guess I didn't notice that or remember that. That's surprising. Yeah, I don't know. Thanks for sharing that, Harsha. That is interesting. And see, Austin thinks the Mustang's too big in regards to our discussion earlier about the Camaro. And it is a big vehicle. You definitely have to get used to the long hood and all that. But if you're used to muscle cars after a while, it's not too bad, in my opinion. Mr. 705 says, I'm looking forward to the redesigned Honda Ridgeline with the V6 going to still be offered, and the new looks in the interior should be a hit. I agree. If they just take Passport like they have in the past and put the truck bed on the back, I think it's going to be a really nice upgrade. Excuse me. And it'd be nice to also have another, fresh V6 option for people that, want a V6 and are open to, unibody. At least you have something other than a Frontier to pick from with a V6. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I don't know when that's coming. I would like to think, by the end of this year, but Honda's kind of been on a slow train here with, doing all these updated things. Pilot's been out for almost 3 years now. And we're now finally getting a Passport, and then, we got to wait another, who knows how long for the Ridgeline too, but they're a little slow with that, I think, but we'll see. And Austin says V6 Challengers are dogs. I had was a rental once. Yeah, I mean, they're not fast, but again, the average driver does not care. It's still going to outrun a Subaru Crosstrek, which is what everyone around here has, So, again, I think that's really where the meat and potatoes are for these, vehicles. If you want to actually survive, that's the way you build your business case, is selling it to the regular person. And let me see. So I see Jordan agrees about the sedans there. And Ford Enthusiast says, I wish Ford would bring back the Fusion and also bring the updated Edge that they sell in China to the States, just build both in the US. Yeah, and it's interesting. I can't remember what they're going to do with their plant in Canada, because they do have a factory in Canada that was building the Edge, and then they stopped. And I think they were clearing out, I can't remember what they were going to build something up there, but now again, who knows what's happening with these tariffs with Canada and Mexico. I don't know, what they're going to do, but I don't think Ford has any spare capacity in the States to add in a Fusion and an Edge. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And I also don't know what's going to happen with Nautilus even, while we're talking about, Ford cars coming from China. The Lincoln Nautilus is built in China. I'm assuming that gets the 10% tariff. I'm not sure, but I hope they don't pull Nautilus. I mean, 10%, again, I think that'll actually, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about this right now because I had forgotten about the Nautilus problem. But if I didn't look into the Chinese tariff because, again, it's just 10% and I wasn't focused on it in the past week or two here. But if that actually does cover cars, that'll be kind of the pioneering test case of okay, you have a 10% tariff on a vehicle. What are you going to do? Are they going to, make Nautilus's 10% more expensive? Or are they going to take it on the nose for a while and then pull it from the market? Or are they going to just pull it from the market immediately? I don't know what they're going to do. I guess, honestly, with how big of a hit Nautilus has been, if anything's going to go to that Canada plant, if they can work out stuff with Canada, then that would maybe be the move, is, move that over there. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm going to keep an eye on Nautilus pricing here and see what ends up happening with that. But yeah, interesting stuff. Let me see. Austin says closest thing to Gateway for Ford now is the Maverick. Yeah, and I guess Maverick is still priced fairly low, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's just they could go cheaper though. I feel like if you had something that was based on Maverick but you just had it smaller, you could actually compete at a little bit of a lower price point there. Yeah, well, we'll see. It doesn't seem like Ford cares, and they're not looking back. So I think we're never getting anything cheaper than a Maverick from Ford anytime soon. And Harsha says Toyota is the only company that understood that sedans will still sell. The Camry and Corolla are very efficient. Yeah, well, I think Honda also is very committed to those segments. And also Hyundai and Kia. Hyundai and Kia know how to really fill the gaps that other companies are missing, or doing features that other companies are refusing to offer. Hyundai is very good about identifying those gaps and profiting off of them, and that's one of the things I love about them. Is I'm like, why is no one doing this? And then like Hyundai and Kia do whatever that thing is. And so I mean, that's why all those sedans are up. I mean, Camry's up, Accord's up, K5 is even up, I believe. And then, you have also Sonata. Obviously, Sonata had a huge year this past year because, again, that front light bar and the modernization. Sonata is great. I was really impressed with that last year. And so I think now with better styling, that thing's going to just, still just keep on being a hit the rest of the year here this year, too. So I'm happy. And, K4, I will have a review on K4. I had one as a press vehicle not too long ago. That review is going live at the beginning of March here. But Cliff Notes is, K4 is another example of them figuring out what do the others offer and what do the others not offer, and how do we make it better. And I think they've kind of done that in a lot of ways. So stay tuned for that review if you're curious. But yeah, Hyundai and Kia do some great stuff. We see that one Islam feminist says, will we ever see another What's Up Everybody Super X fan here? Yeah. These days it's been so long now. It's going to be 8 years this year since I changed the name. And it's fun for the subscribers, but even now, like, it's going to be like the people that have only been subscribed for beyond 8 years that are even going to understand that joke, So it really is a very small amount of people that really remember that these days. I mean, my views, even these days, I think 70% of my viewership comes from non-subscribers, and like a large chunk of that are new viewers as well. So it's just one of those things I'm trying to not alienate people. So that's why I don't, even with my WX review, I haven't done that very much in the past, just because it's again something that would kind of confuse people. It's like, am I on the right channel? It says Matt Maran Motoring down here, and then he's saying something else. And but yeah, I do say it occasionally on here and and every once in a while elsewhere. But yeah, I appreciate the long time support though. And let me see. Austin says, I'm beyond tired of SUVs and crossovers, to be honest. I'm right there with you. And CTFI was excited about the Mirage mention there, I'm assuming. And let me see. Ben thinks I'm getting a Mirage. I'm not getting a Mirage. I will say that, yeah, the thing I'm getting is an EV, just because I don't want to waste money on oil changes when the vehicle will be driven maybe 1,000 miles a year tops. And it'll be sitting for months on end. And so EV is better for that kind of a case. So it will definitely be electric. I want to cash in on these EV tax credits while I can before that evaporates here at the stroke of a pen at some point. That technically, for anyone that is an EV buyer, by the way, if you are shopping, that is supposed to be something that has to be taken away slowly, because that is part of the Inflation Reduction Act with the way the tax credit was bundled for the EVs. So that is supposed to be a Congress done thing. But as we have seen in the past month, there's a lot of things that have supposed to have been things that Congress was doing that are now just executive orders. So, that's why, I don't think you should rely on, the fact that that is a Congress kind of thing and hope for any kind of, tax credit to stick around, because it could literally be one tweet away from being wiped out. So that's why I'm cashing in on it while I can here and not dilly-dallying on that. And let me see here. So Caleb says, Matt, do you have any hobbies outside of your work? I've been putting everything into work lately, and now I'm thinking I should start looking into finding a hobby. I have no hobbies between the channel and, I mean, obviously, I guess you could argue that, my hobby is my job, honestly. It is very fun. Cars were always my top hobby, and making my hobby my career is really fun. Obviously, there's work stuff that, intermingles in that, so it's not all just fun and, just fun and games all the time. But, I think that is one reason why I don't feel like super bummed out that I don't have any other hobbies, because again, this is the thing I'm most passionate about from a hobby standpoint. So doing that, as a job is kind of, fine for me. But as far as, I mean, I've always been into movies and, books and, all the usual kind of stuff, but even that I don't have time for. It's also, it doesn't help that, being a dad, and, being a husband, there's other obligations I have. People play that differently, and everyone has a different approach to that. But for me, they're my top priority, and everything else takes a back seat. And so, that means if I have a choice of hanging with the family or going and doing something for myself, sitting in the garage and detailing for 5 hours or something, like I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, I'd rather hang with them and have the car be a mess or, whatever the case is. So, yeah, I don't really have time for any kind of hobbies, honestly. So, someday, hoping, I'll add more hobbies in, as life gets slower at some point in the future. But right now everything's a blur and I'm just trying to, keep up. So, no time for hobbies. But I hope you find a hobby you enjoy, Caleb. Obviously there's no shortage of them out there these days. Um, and I think again, if your work isn't a hobby or a fun pursuit for you on your own, definitely make sure you find something to keep your sanity. I think that's very, very important. So best of luck finding that. And yeah, gotta have that balance in some form or some kind of a hint of a balance, even if it's completely out of whack like mine is. But yeah, best of luck for that, Caleb. And sorry, Jordan, I keep missing the super chats coming in. So first off, thank you for the one asking Hyundai and Kia abstract design. Should Ford copy Hyundai and Kia designs? I think Ford understands their buyers. Their buyers are a little bit more, I think, traditional, a little bit more comfortable with traditional styling, nothing too radical from a change standpoint. And that works for Ford. Obviously, they have the best selling vehicle in the world or in the country here with the F-150. And so there's no reason to really, again, alienate people whenever evolutionary stuff clearly works well for them. But I think that's one of the things another thing I really admire about Hyundai and Kia is, they are a giant company and they do sell a ton of vehicles, but they're not afraid to take risks, and not only take risks on like a design language like other companies might do, where they copy and paste the same front end on everything they make, but like every Hyundai and Kia has a unique design in and of itself. There's looks nothing like anything else in the lineup, really. I mean, there's some, I guess you could say Sonata and Kona both have the light bar, but there's other things that make them more unique and, different. But, I really always commend them for that. Cause it is really, really, really cool. And I had the fortunate experience of getting to chat with one of the Hyundai designers on the Ioniq 6 launch. I think that was 2 years ago now at this point. And I told him, I'm like, I love that you guys do something different for every vehicle. I'm like, you're like the only one in the industry that actually does that and does it this boldly. And I'm like, you guys are like, I think like my heroes from a design standpoint, because not only are you bold, but it's actually looking good. They're actually nice looking designs and they're all different. And it's way more hard work than saying, oh, this is our design language. We copy and paste on everything. It's just, that's lazy to me. It's like consistent, and I understand, I guess, the rationale for it, but like I love the way Hyundai and Kia are doing it instead. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you also for the other super chat, Jordan. He says, "Where the hell is the Chevy Bolt? Bring back the Volt as a Prius contender." Yeah, Bolt and Volt. I mean, I think Bolt, is certainly coming at some point here this year. I think it's maybe at least going to be revealed in the first half of this year. Potentially, because I know the factory, and I think it's in Kansas, that quit building the Malibu, or quit building the XT4 to make room for it. I think it is that Malibu factory, but that they stopped building XT4 I think already, and they're retooling. So I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised we haven't seen Bolt yet, because you would think, with all these other GM things, we're seeing the design 2 years before we actually see it on the road. And with this, it sounds like we'll probably see Bolt on the road by the end of this year, potentially. And we still have no clue what it looks like or know anything about it at all. So I don't know. As far as Volt is a car that talking about earlier about cars that got killed too soon, man, if they had just stuck out another 5 years with Volt or renewed it for another generation, yeah, they could have had another great Prius contender and had a really solid seller, I think. I mean, even the people that own current Volts that are out there, I mean, they love those things, and they really seem like they have a strong cult following, because it seems like it's a brilliant car. It was so ahead of its time. It's like, what, 50 miles of electric range or something, like way ahead of its time. Yeah, it's one of those brief moments of brilliance with GM where they nail it, but it's like their crystal ball is 2 years, it's too many years in the future. It's like whoever is working the time portal at GM, like they have a time portal, they figure out like, we have the Volt, this is going to be amazing, and then they bring it out 10 years too soon, and it's just unfortunate. But I swear, some of those things GM does, I truly am like, who's got the crystal ball? Who's got the portal? Somebody actually has it, because these like are truly like brilliant. Like you actually saw the future and you nailed it. It just, you got the timing wrong. There's many things like that, I feel like, with GM. So yeah, Volt's sad. I hope that maybe they reconsider someday, but with how slow GM is moving, I mean, they're saying we're not even going to get a plug-in hybrid Equinox that's already available in China. We're not getting that for like another 2 years. It's like, what are you guys doing? It's like you're just literally giving away sales that you could have had. It's just it's insane. So anyway, yeah, I totally agree with you there, Jordan. Thank you again for the super chat. And Harsher says, are any car companies looking at the e-bike market, and do they have any plans in joining? E-bikes are technically electric vehicles. However, the performance is too much for a bicycle. A tiny little car could be appealing for this type of market. Another good perk with e-bikes is there's no license requirements. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's been a few that have dabbled with like branding stuff. But I don't know. Car companies never seem really, for the most part, to cross over. Obviously, there's a few exceptions, BMW and Honda, where they just have always done those separate, divisions. But I don't think you see regular car companies interested in e-bike. Primarily because, again, I just don't think there's much of a profit margin. If you can't load it up with all this extra stuff, every single component is, got a margin on it. And so the more stuff you can stuff into things, the higher the profit potentially. And so with an e-bike, or anything that's simple for that matter, there's just very little room for profit there. And so, it's just not worth their time. I think, they're happy to let other companies, deal with that on their own. I mean, again, there are stuff that, some that dabble, like you have, Honda, having, what is that little like briefcase kind of thing that you can ride that they came out with. And, some of these other fun little things that they, experiment with. Another one of the quirky reasons why, I still really like Honda. But yeah, just not something I think that they could actually make good money on, at least here in the States. Other parts of the world where motorcycles are a primary mode of transportation, absolutely. But even there, you have the Titans that are already dominating. But yeah, I think here in the States, e-bikes are getting more popular for sure, but I just don't see it being worth any of these car companies, time and effort to do that stuff. But we'll see what happens. Maybe if the market really gets to a point where people don't have the money and more people are transitioning to motorcycles and stuff, then maybe you could see that. If we really get to a bad place financially in this country, I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think that'd be a really stretch. It's just the culture here is just not conducive to mass adoption of motorcycles, especially with everything being gigantic on the road. But let me see. Truck and Car Guy says, my only issue with Sentra now is that it's basically just a smaller Altima, just like the Versa is a smaller Sentra. There's nothing unique about them. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see that. I mean, I think you could say that for just about any of those small cars, though. Because it's different styling. So to me, you could apply that to any of them. Civic's smaller Accord in some ways. It's even same thing with Corolla and Camry, honestly. So I don't know. I think Sentra's really a nice little vehicle, honestly. And let me see. I see Austin, talking about the Elon thing. So I won't wade into the debate there a little bit, but Dom says, hey Matt, my first live in a while. Good to see you're still going. You always make Sundays better. I appreciate that, Dom. Hope you're doing well too. And thanks again for still being a member all these years. I really appreciate that too. And for all your support. I hope you're doing well. And Trent Carguy says it was a Grand Cherokee 4B earlier. We were talking about the electrical issues at Stellantis. And Jason says I wouldn't touch a 4xe with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, it's a shame because I feel like that has promise, but again, it's even just having the check engine light on the one that I had for the Wrangler. It's just like, it makes you kind of pause and not trust the vehicle a ton. But that's also not unique to them. I also had a check engine light, this past year in the Volvo XC60 Polestar engineered with that plug-in hybrid thing, throwing a check engine light too. So. And this is why it's so damn impressive what Toyota does, that they do these super reliable things. And that's why I love all the Prime, or I guess now they're ditching the Prime name, but the plug-in hybrid Toyotas are just so well done. And let me see here. Austin says, once you're a billionaire, you'll never want for anything in life. At some point, it just becomes numbers in a ledger. Yeah, at least as far as the material stuff, for sure. I think that's why you see a lot of power stuff being the real draw for a lot of billionaires. Whether it's influence or changing markets, or just doing other things. At that point, yeah, it's not about money, it's about the control and the power and stuff, I think, for most of them, because it's, where else do you go if you already have everything you want money wise? Then what else is there to conquer? And that's, for these people to get to that point, you have to be a conqueror, and you have to be someone that's always ambitious and always looking for more. Otherwise you would have stopped before you got to being a billionaire. So I think that's why the next logical step for a lot of them is that power thing, for sure. I mean, there are some that are chill. I will actually say, I'm not like friends with them, but I am acquaintances with someone who actually is a billionaire. And they're happy to just play around with their Paganis and just enjoy life, and do their business stuff, and that's it. But for a lot of them, that's not enough, and so it just all comes down to personalities. But let me see. Austin says, these days you just have to separate the person from their politics, or you'll never enjoy anything again. I can understand that. But yeah, I think a lot of people, though, especially in the past 5 or 10 years, a lot of people understand that their money has power, and their buying decisions do have power, even if it's on a small scale. And so they feel empowered by that, and they want to make choices that promote the things that they want to promote, or support the people they want to support. So I think there's a lot of that. I mean, I will say that again, I'm one of those people that I can't separate those things, and I still can still buy things, still enjoy things. And sure, you pick your battles. You can't, I'm not running a background check on every single person that's an executive at every single company I buy from or anything. But as far as the main dominating, stuff that we see or hear in the news or whatever, those are the types of things where, if I'm like, oh, like not going to support that business anymore or whatever, that's something I totally do actually do. But yeah, it's all difference in personality. So I know lots of people that have no problems with that stuff, and they don't care, about who runs the company, or what the company did, or who the company donated to, or whatever. It's just, they don't care. And that's, I have no judgment for that. It just comes down to personality, I think. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, with established Toyota EV/hybrid tech, why would Ford merge or reach out? Yeah, I don't think Ford would, honestly. I think Ford has their own hybrid stuff that's actually pretty good. Ford does pretty good EVs. So I think that the two of them are kind of happy to coexist separately. And yeah, I don't think there's any desire there to work together. But I will say that I think Toyota and Ford have actually some of the best hybrid tech there is. So yeah, it's interesting. Kind of, a lot of people don't give Ford the credit, I think, because that's always been the interesting thing, is like Ford's been doing hybrid stuff for almost as long as Toyota, not quite as long, but like a long time. And yet no one's like, oh, Ford hybrids, like those are the ones they get, but they are fantastic. You look at the Ford Escape taxi cabs. I mean, I read a story about one of those things. I mean, there's a bunch of them still going, but they're like over like 400, 500,000 miles on these hybrid systems, still grueling stop and go traffic for a decade or more, and they're still holding out and still being solid. And so it's yeah, I think Ford does much better hybrid tech than people give them credit for. And so I see with this, I see what you're saying. You corrected it. Why would they not reach out? And I think, again, same answer though. It's because they both do really good stuff. They don't need the help. And so they're, again, happy to just compete traditionally, and let me see here. So we are coming up. We got another 12 minutes or so to go here. So I'm going to make sure we get caught up on the member questions, and I'll see if I can do some of the other non-member stuff. But we have caught up pretty nicely here for the most part. So let me see. So Austin says, regardless of my feelings for Elon, I hate Teslas. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of reasons for people to not enjoy Teslas even before Elon But I think for a lot of people, that was the nail in the coffin too. Let me see. And Harsha says, I forgot to tell you this, but a guy at my local car meet decided to do burnouts and donuts in the parking lot, almost hitting the president of the club and almost running me over. The dude has an M2. Oof. I was expecting you to say Mustang. Man, that sucks. Those types of people are the ones that ruin it for everybody, because then the cops get called and everything, goes downhill. And it's just, man, I don't know why. I guess, cars, certainly do sometimes attract, people that need to feel like they have something to prove or whatever the case is. But it's like, why can't people just be chill? Like, no one needs to see you doing donuts. I don't know. Anyway, maybe I've just grown out of that stage or something. But that's why I don't ever show up at car meets, because it's like I don't have the patience for that kind of stuff. I'll go to the old Winga Dinga, car shows and stuff, and and know that I don't have to worry about anyone going nuts. But Austin says Elon would sue over the boring name. Yeah, true. As if we're doing that for the BMW body kits, that's true. Is that still a thing? Speaking of Elon projects, is he still trying to build tunnels? Maybe he finally gave up on that, because that seems like that went nowhere. But yeah, so many. Yeah, I'll continue to to keep on moving on for the Elon tangents. But let me see. Harsha says, which is really nice, but the person driving takes too much of a risk. The guy even posted this stunt on Instagram, which was very dumb. Yeah, that is pretty dumb. But yeah, I think those two things kind of go hand in hand. If you're gonna take that kind of a risk, then you're happy taking the risk of posting it online as well. Austin agrees about the new class looking good. And Harsha says, I don't like the interior direction of brand new models. Almost every car has screens, but the dashboard looks so plain now. A lot of companies are guilty of this. I agree. There are a lot that just do the tacked on screens. And I've actually in the past, few months, especially really, kind of praised the cars that actually have integrated screens and the companies that chose to do integrations versus just being like, all right, we got a big screen, check that box, move on to the next thing, because that's the way a lot of them are doing it too. So yeah, I agree. It's nice to have the integration when you can. And Harsha says, over this coming week, me and my buddy are going to change spark plugs and do a coolant flush on his 96 Toyota Tercel Coupe with a 5-speed manual. The engine only produces 96 horsepower. That's awesome. But, the thing about those old vehicles is they weren't heavy. So, 96 horsepower, the power to weight ratio on that. I mean, I obviously don't know what it is off the top of my head, but, it's probably not terrible. And it's probably, I don't know, just if I'm guessing, that thing probably weighs maybe 2,500 pounds. And then, so that's equivalent, Miata is what, like 2,800 or something, is it now? Maybe it's a little lighter than that, but regardless, it's not a slow car. It's not as fast as a Miata, but it's still pretty decent when you consider, all these cars that have 130 horsepower that are 1,000 pounds heavier. It's probably not too bad. But hope you enjoy doing the maintenance there, though, and kudos to you guys for doing it on your own. And Austin says, bring back the techno intro for the Super X fan stuff. Yeah, those are the good old days. If techno ever gets mainstream again, maybe it'd be a fun thing to do as a throwback. But that's why I got rid of intros, because they just kill watch time. People, the second people click, they want to get the answer to their question from whatever the thumbnail said or whatever the title said. You immediately got to start getting into that, the first 5 seconds. Otherwise, you lose people. It's amazing. If you look at the analytics on YouTube videos, not just mine, but most, the drop-off rate, just like the goal on YouTube is getting people to stay for 30 seconds. If you get them to stay for 30 seconds, even that alone boosts the video, because it's like, wow, this person actually stuck around for 30 seconds. I think usually you lose a good video would be like maybe half of your viewers in the first 30 seconds. A worser performing video, typically you lose maybe 75%. And I'd say the average for me, maybe you have like 30% of people that stick around beyond the first few minutes. And that might sound super low, but that is kind of the norm. Unless, again, you're doing some real cliffhanger kind of stuff, or you have a very dedicated audience that hangs on to every word you say. But, especially, again, you got a lot of new people coming in. It's not, if you're not immediately, very, I don't know what the word is, even appealing to them, they're going to click away. But a ton of people Maybe you guys can relate. Maybe you do this a lot. You click on a video and you immediately bail. Apparently that's the norm on YouTube is everyone clicks on stuff, says, oh wait, never mind, and bails within the first 30 seconds on a ton of videos. So yeah, if everyone actually watched beyond 30 seconds, like the channel would be doing even like so much better just on that one silly little thing alone. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, Ford Enthusiast says another off-road vehicle that looks interesting is the Hyundai Ioniq 5 XRT trim. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I mean, I personally don't like the way they changed the looks on it, but if that doesn't bother you, I mean, it sounds like a cool little idea. They're kind of, again, beating Subaru to the punch of having an electric kind of off-road ready thing in a way. And I think it's a cool idea. I just wish they wouldn't have gone, the Subaru route of, plastering it and cheap, looking plastic for the bumpers and all that. But I guess it's rugged or whatever. But yeah, I'm kind of curious how that one does. I hope they also have done better battery protection because I know there were a few very highly promoted cases of the batteries getting punctured in the Ioniq 5s and totaling out the vehicle basically because battery packs are so expensive still. And so I think there is certainly some concerns there that I would have, but hopefully again they've done the testing to make sure that that is actually able to endure rocky roads and stuff where you're kicking up a bunch of stuff into the underside of the vehicle there. But I'm sure again they did the testing hopefully, so that's not going to be a warranty nightmare for them. And Austin says Matt coming in hot with Tesla Model 3. Yeah, it's not a fan, unfortunately. I mean, I liked it. I reviewed it back in 2018 before they were polarizing, and it's a genuinely good car. And it's just a shame that it's just been marred by all this crap of the past few years. And Two Track Jack is guessing that the EV that I'll be getting is the Hyundai Ioniq. Yeah, I mean, again, I was shopping a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of them that have advertised very low, cheap leases. And that was my job of the past month and a half here, was sifting through the BS of like what is actually available at these prices and what isn't. And, whenever you do factor in tax, title, tags, money down, all these types of things, like what is actually cheap and what is just, smoke and mirrors with, an advertised rate. And so I will, be discussing that here in my reveal this week, and kind of also, I guess, in that way, it'll be a little bit of buying advice of like, I've called all the dealerships, I've knocked on every door within a 300-mile radius of my location here, and figured out what is actually cheap and what is not, and so hopefully that'll be a little bit of helpful advice for those of you who are maybe wanting to rush out and buy a dirt or lease a dirt cheap EV, before that credit goes away. And let me see here. I see Austin agreeing about the Volt. Jordan says, in the future, will you introduce model car building to your daughter? Well, she loved doing the Legos here. We built the DeLorean Back to the Future Lego car, and then the other one there is the DB5 Bond car in the distance there. She loved building both of those with me, and she actually has been saying like, oh, when are you going to get another one to build? And I don't really have any other ones. The only other one I wanted was the Dark Knight Tumbler, but I don't know if they quit making it. I think it might still be out there, but it's just expensive, all those Lego cars. So we'll have to see if that one comes out in price. But she's been wanting to do another one of those. So hopefully we'll do another one soon. But yeah, I do want to do more of that with her. She loves crafts. So, that is a form of crafting in a way, building cars, even if they're not Lego, it's the other like old fashioned kind of, car models. So definitely going to do more of that hopefully in the future with her. So yeah, great question, Jordan. Thanks for asking. And sorry I missed your other super chat. It says Ford partnered with Opel. Where is Opel? Yeah, I mean, I think they, with that whole split off with GM, them and Vauxhall are kind of doing their own thing now. I think I can't remember exactly who they're hooked up with these days. But it seems like they're doing really well. I think the Vauxhall Corsa, which again, it partnered with Opel. That was, I think, the actual best-selling vehicle in the UK last year, if I remember correctly, or one of the top ones. They still do know their markets very well, the ones they compete in. So yeah, But thank you again for the super chat, Jordan. There, and yeah, we'll see if Opal ever comes back to the States. But let me see. Austin says Ford also never took a federal bailout. I respect them for that. That's true. They were the the most financially responsible one of the bunch back then, and yeah, Ford. I mean, they make some great products for sure, and I do like the direction. And also, I have to say that Chris, not Chris Farley, Jim Farley, CEO, cousin of Chris Farley. He, this past week coming out and saying, this stuff about this, being honest about like what these tariffs are going to do to the car industry. I haven't agreed with everything that, he has said in the past, but, him saying that I think took courage in the past week or two here to say, look, like this is not going to be good for the car industry. Especially, because it's risky to speak negatively about that stuff, especially whenever you're trying to get favorable treatment. You're trying to, because that's the name of the game for the next 4 years here is, flattery and trying to, kiss the ring. So I think, it was commendable of him. And so I do really respect Ford for, saying, look, this is our reality. We know cars, we know the car market, we know what a 25% tariff is going to do. No one else has come out and spoken about this. Everyone else is sitting in the shadows, biting their nails and hoping for the best, maybe lobbying or whatever. But like, Ford's, their CEO, he's very outspoken. And again, he's made some weird comments in the past year and said some questionable things where I'm like, what is this dude talking about? But like with the tariffs, I'm like, thank you for saying what I think is the truth and what, I agree with that, it just seems like it's a bad idea, for car prices for consumers, at least as far as the car tariffs go. So we'll see. But anyway, let me see. Austin says, fun live stream, Matt. Hope all is well with Beth and the fam. Everyone's doing well for sure. Yeah, Beth's hoping to get back here on a live stream at some point. She's been busy with her own stuff, but hopefully we'll do that soon here. And Austin says, have a good week, everyone. Yeah, I see we actually just hit the 2-hour mark. So I'll do the last few questions here and then I will sign off. But Harsha says, is it just me or is it people in regular grocery getters road rage more than enthusiasts? It sounds kind of ironic considering grocery getters are not enthusiasts. Yeah, it does seem, I think there's just more road rage in general. I think, again, everyone is worked up about either, politics or they're worked up about, whatever the case is. I think just there's more rage in the world these days, sadly. And so I think that just, is an outlet of that, with being behind the wheel and, and it's not great. But I think that's, why, and I'd like to think maybe this is not an accurate reflection, but I feel like at least around here, you do have some enthusiasts that are, a little ragey or a little like, oh, I want to be Dominic Toretto and like be a badass and all this stuff. But I feel like the majority of enthusiasts, especially non-muscle car enthusiasts, I feel like they are more chill, typically speaking, or they only are going fast if they're trying to like have fun and not that they're angry. So I agree. Like, I mean, half the road rage videos I see are people in, Subaru Foresters and stuff, that are slow, regular cars. And, that's where you see a lot of the road rage. So yeah, it's just the way, a symptom of the society we live in these days. And let me see. Carla says, did you happen to see the new Dodge Miata looking sports coupe that they're working on? And I see Austin saying, yeah, that was an old concept vehicle. Yeah, that was actually called the Dodge Demon. It came out in 2006, I believe. It was just a concept car back when Dodge was still doing a bunch of awesome concept cars. So many fun concepts they did back then. But yeah, so that was one. And they also did like the Slingshot was another one. They actually did do a car called the Slingshot before Polaris did it. And there's like the Razor, which was a collaboration with the Razor scooter company, with a little sports car. There's all these fun little affordable little things they did, but that's, I actually, it showed those pictures in my weekly update, but that was just, that was the Demon, just to give a little bit of reference of maybe what they're thinking of based on a, 20-year-old concept. But that is not anything that's happening. That car is not a real, production model. That's a real car they built, but it's just a concept. They only built, I think one of them probably. And let me see. Cara says, thanks for the fun and engaging live stream tonight. Have a great night, everyone. You as well, Cars. And Ford Enthusiast said, I thought GM was with Opel. I believe they sold them off, unless I'm misremembering. I could be wrong, but I thought they kind of, split off from them a couple years ago. But let me see. Trent Car Guy says, having two older paid off vehicles is looking better and better each day. Absolutely. And I say 100% stick with that. Interest rates still aren't great unless you're buying something new that's got, a subsidized rate attached to it. But yeah, absolutely. Hold on to the stuff you have and lock in either that or, again, lock in your affordable car while you can, because that may become a thing of the past pretty quick here. We'll see. But Jordan says Honda Nissan talks. I think Ford and Dodge merger would be a wholesome merge for the US. Am I wrong? I think Ford's just so huge. Again, I don't think they need it. And I honestly think that, again, the baggage of Stellantis just wouldn't help. And I think, with Dodge, they have the whole Stellantis empire, which is still very huge and still a huge moneymaker. I mean, Fiat, is a joke here in the States, but I mean, in the rest of the world, they sell a ton of Fiats, like top sellers in the other parts of the world and lots of other parts of the world. And that actually Fiat was still the number one selling brand in the Stellantis empire last year. So, I mean, they still have a bunch of money. We're just not seeing it here in the States, but like they are dominating in a lot of other markets still. So again, I really don't think, Stellantis is having all these issues. I keep going back between Stellantis and Stellantis because I keep always saying that, but everyone's like, it's Stellantis. I'm the only person who says Stellantis, so I'm always flipping. But I think they will be okay financially. I think they just have some trouble, some leadership here. They've just gotten rid of with the CEO and stuff, and I think that they will be on a better path. It just sometimes they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, for lack of a better term. And hopefully there'll be less of that with them kind of focusing on, their more, brand level leaders, letting them do their own thing about what they need to do for their brand instead of, trying to have some giant parent company call the shots and everything. So yeah, I see the tariff comment. I'm just going to refuse because that could be a whole nother tangent. About that. But anyway, so Jordan says, so with their other marketing, should Stellantis leave the USA? No, they have obviously all their other brands and stuff that are huge. So I think they're very much, again, Jeep is an icon. They're Stellantis, they're rock solid. I'm not concerned about them at all. Chrysler, there might be some shuffling with brands and stuff, but I think, as far as especially the moneymakers, Ram's not going anywhere, Jeep's not going anywhere, Dodge isn't going anywhere. These are solid, huge brands that still sell a lot of cars. So I think everything's going to be fine for Stellantis. But we'll see. I mean, Nissan is huge in other markets as well, and they're still struggling. But I think they just don't have the financing that Stellantis has, again, thanks to the huge Fiat sales and other stuff elsewhere in the world. Let me see. Cars is going there with some more comments that are interesting. But I'm just going to sign off here because we have reached the end. And I see everyone else, saying have a good week and all that. But yeah, so thanks so much, everyone, for stopping by. And I will see you guys on the next one. Also, for any of you who are members that have the member schedule, I don't know how many people actually pay attention to that. That is getting a shuffle this week to make room for a video slot for my reveal video of the vehicle that I'm leasing here and revealing that here this week. So that's going to get shuffled. I think I'll hopefully be posting the real video on Thursday for that. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, everything else I got a little bit different. So I'll be having a video on the Nissan Frontier, my week with that, the refresh version of that here coming on Tuesday. I'll be the next video to look forward to. And Rivian R1T on Wednesday, I'll be posting the refresh version of that, and then the reveal video of the new vehicle here on the channel on Thursday. So stay tuned for that, hopefully. And hopefully by next week, I'll also be able to give you guys the info on what the exciting press vehicle is that I'll hopefully be getting this week. That's going to be a huge deal. It's going to be the most exciting press car I've ever gotten if I do actually get it. So I'm excited to kind of share more of that story here next week, hopefully. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining this week. Have a great week, everyone. Stay warm. Hopefully enjoy the warmer temps that are coming across the country here this week. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much again for your support and for watching, and take care.